My name is Ron Daniels, Dr. Ron Daniels, President of the Institute of the Black World 21st Century, and I'm delighted that you are here and that I will be attempting to guide us through the program this evening for what promises to be a very memorable and potentially historic occasion. To begin the program, we want to welcome our host, who has been so generous as the great pastor of this wonderful church. We have the Institute of the Black World 21st Century has done a number of events here, and they are kind enough this weekend to host the National and International Symposium on Democracy and Development in Africa and the Caribbean. Would you please give a warm welcome to the Reverend Dr. Ronald E. Braxton, the Senior Pastor of Metropolitan AME Church.
Thank you so much, Dr. Daniels, and delighted once again to be in your company and to have you in our company here at the National Cathedral of the African Methodist Episcopal Church. These things come on when they want to come on. Again, delighted to have you in our presence. To all of our distinguished guests this evening, to the Honorable Pedro Pierce, we're delighted to have you share with us. Prime Minister Gonsalves, we're delighted to have you share with us. To the members of the Diplomatic Corps, Congressman Conyers, delighted to have you here as well. And to all of you who are present this evening, who are distinguished in your own rights, again, it's my task and challenge to say a word of greeting and welcome. In the year 2016, the African Methodist Episcopal Church will celebrate 200 years as a Christian denomination. That's something that you ought to applaud. And maybe I said it too fast, but I said in the year 2016, the African Methodist Episcopal Church will celebrate 200 years as a Christian denomination. We were established in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Our first annual conference was held in Baltimore, Maryland. We started as a small band of slaves and freed blacks with a firm commitment to the Christian faith, motivated by the liberating gospel preached and taught by Jesus Christ. Today, with over 7 million members and churches, 7 million members, and churches in almost every state in the continental USA, all across the mother continent of Africa, the Caribbean, Canada, the Bahamas, London, and India, we witness to the empowering and liberating message of Christ and serve to lift up broken humanity wherever brokenness is found. This church, this particular church, is a branch of African Methodism, Metropolitan African Methodist Episcopal Church, have been serving the greater Washington area for the last 175 years. This year marks our 175th anniversary. Metropolitan has consistently been on the front line of service and ministry to be true to the stated purpose and mission of the Mother Church, to, quote, spread Christ's liberating gospel through word and deed, to seek and save the lost, to serve the needy, feed the hungry, clothe the naked, provide for the homeless, and administer to those in prison, hospitals, to encourage thrift and economic development. When our founders put our name to pen and paper, they were clear that we are of African descent, and thus the name African. We are Methodists by practice of our faith, and we are Episcopal by our governance. Over the past 175 years, this church, Metropolitan, has taken on the challenge of being a voice for the voiceless. Because we are a global church, our concerns and mission is global, not only for those on these shores, but for our brothers and sisters who are hurting and suffering across the globe. We stand for them as well. As we view the world scene and witness the strife and plight of those who are now following the example of the March on Washington 50 years ago in their struggle for freedom, liberation, and a just democracy for all people, we stand as a congregation and a denomination raising our voice against global violence, human trafficking, abject world poverty, greedy world powers which turn a deaf ear and a blind eye to the basic needs of the oppressed, depressed, and disenfranchised people of the world. So tonight, be at home and be free in this national sacred place to lift up your voices and your concerns for those who cannot and will not be heard. As did Booker T. Washington, Frederick Douglass, Ida B. Wells, Eleanor Roosevelt, and many others stood here in this place trying to do their best to uplift the human race wherever people are hurting and wherever people are struggling and wherever people are depressed, wherever people are finding themselves, quote, between a rock and a hard place. It is here that you ought to be at home, not a stranger, to lift up your voice and mingle once again in the fight for humanity. Welcome.
It's indeed a pleasure to be with you this evening and to participate in the symposium, which we will hold tomorrow. And on this occasion, it's important for us to note that as part of our continuing work, and I think this will be of particular interest to you, Congressman, that on the holiday which you established for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., for the last 16 years in Boston, we have hosted the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Amilcar Cabral commemoration. Since, as you know, Cabral was assassinated the same week as Dr. King's birthday, along with Patrice Lumumba. And it's important to build that bridge in recognizing the leadership that is here today. Cape Verde holds a singular place, certainly in our community in Boston because of the size of that community and its importance to us locally, but also as an important representation of the diaspora. Because on the continent of Africa, as far as I know, Cape Verde is the only country that has formal representation of the diaspora in its national parliament. And on the occasion of the conferences that we have held annually, we have been honored to have as a representative there the ambassador from Cape Verde to the United States. She is a sister who previously has served as Minister for Foreign Affairs and Cooperation and Communities in her country, served as Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs. She studied internationally in France and Germany and Brazil. And prior to being the ambassador from Cape Verde to the United States, she served as the permanent representative of Cape Verde to the United Nations, where she was both the vice chair and acting chair of the Alliance of Small Island Developing States. She has led her country to being the only country on the continent of Africa to currently have received the second tranche of the Millennium Challenge accounts. And Cape Verde has done an extraordinary job in moving forward in that development process and utilizing these resources for the betterment of their country. She served here 6 years, and unfortunately for us, in our community, we will lose her since these are her final days here, as she will move on to represent her country abroad again. It is a distinct pleasure for me to introduce Her Excellency, Fatima Vega.
Thank you, Professor Kamara. Dear host, Reverend Ronald Braxton, Prime Minister Gonçalves, Congressman Conyers, colleagues from the Diplomatic Corps, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It is a real pleasure to be here tonight with you, and I look forward to participating in the symposium tomorrow. I thank Dr. Ron Daniels and the Institute of Black World for this opportunity to take the floor and introduce to you a great statesman, a dear friend and mentor, the Honorable Pedro de Verona Rodrigues Pires. A great nationalist and a distinguished freedom fighter, Pedro Pires assumed highest functions in political and military planning inside the African Party for the Independence of Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde, which he joined in June 1961, along with a large group of young Africans. After the overthrow of the Portuguese government in April 25, 1974, Pedro Pires led the PAIGC delegation that negotiated with the Portuguese government the recognition of the independence of Guinea-Bissau, a process that culminated in the signing of the Argel Accord in August of the same year. In December 1974, as the head of the PAIGC delegation, Pedro Pires signed the agreement for Cape Verdean independence, having subsequently negotiated with the Portuguese government the political transitional process that led to the national independence on the 5th of July, 1975. During 3 successive mandates, the government headed by Pedro Pires achieved great strides in governing in an objective and pragmatic manner, envisioning the building of an organized state that was efficient and credible and equally useful in the international arena. Among other achievements, the governments led by Pedro Pires were able to, in 12 years period, to move the country from a situation of extreme poverty to the multiplication of the national product by 2.5 and the doubling of the production per capita. Cape Verde achieved during this period one of the best human development indexes in Africa. There was substantial gains in the health, education, training, and literacy, which translate in a significant improvement in the conditions of life of the population and also in the protection of the environment. At the international level, Cape Verdean government played an important role in the negotiation process that freed Southern Africa from colonial yoke and apartheid. Pro-political reforms, he was one of the main architects of the first pluralistic elections held in Cape Verde in January 1991. Indeed, even though some prominent members of his party initially resisted the reform plans, he managed to convince them that the political openness was the right path to follow. He eventually paid a price for his bold vision, for choosing ethics over power and the interests of the country over personal ambition. He lost those elections and accepted the results, thus demonstrating fair play and demonstrating also that power transition can happen in Africa without corruption and without bloodshed. Committed to democracy, while in the opposition, he continued to work for the democratic advancement in Cape Verde. On February 25, 2001, in the second round of the presidential elections, he was elected the third President of the Republic of Cape Verde. He was re-elected on the first round on February 12, 2006. During his presidency, Cape Verde became a model of democracy, stability, and increased prosperity. For his highest contributions to democracy and good governance, he was granted the 2011 Mo Ibrahim Foundation Prize, and since then, no other leader has received such a distinction. He was awarded the honoris causa diplomas and other high distinctions from Cape Verde, Brazil, the Gambia, Guinea-Bissau, Senegal, Portugal, and Spain. President of Amilcar Cabral Foundation, he also created recently Pedro Pires Foundation, an organization that has a view to continue to contribute to democracy and development in Cape Verde and in Africa, namely through a strong program aimed at training and building new leaderships. So it's my pleasure now to introduce to you the Honorable Pedro Pires.